There were very enthusiastic. Jill Biden will be here today. And if you just take a look at the sheer numbers, you're talking about 4.6 million voters who've already turned out and voted early. That is more than 62% of all registered voters in this state. And if you just to put it into perspective, 96% of all those who voted back in 2016 in North Carolina. So what are they expecting? Perhaps up to 1 million voters throughout the state who will be casting their ballots. They also have an opportunity for those absentee ballots mail-in. If it's postmarked today, then it will actually count and be counted up until November 12th. That was an extension because of COVID to allow more time for the Postal Service to get those ballots, make their way to that tally. Having said that, however, we've been talking to election officials, and they say that unlike some of the other states, these battleground states, they believe they're going to be able to tally about 97% of the ballots cast, that they'll have a very good idea the outcome of the election. Of course, as you know, John, it is unofficial, that tally, but they are confident that we will know whether or not it's President Trump or Biden at the end of the day. Allison?
Really good to know, Suzanne. Thank you so much for all of that. Joining us now, we have Anna Palmer. She's a senior Washington correspondent for Politico, and CNN political analyst Tolu Olorunipa. He is a White House reporter for the Washington Post. Okay, so here's what we know. Close to 100 million people have already voted. That's 73% of the total turnout in 2016. What we don't know, Anna, is what that means for today. If the numbers today will also be record-breaking, or if that early vote eats into some of the voting numbers today. What are you watching?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big unknown question here. A lot of experts are shocked even by what was expected to be a historic turnout in terms of voting has really broken past what most people thought it was going to. I think the real question is going to be for the president and his allies, because they need a strong ground game going into today to get the vote out in order to actually compete in some of these states, in Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, certainly. And so that to me is going to be the big question. I think the other side that's been very interesting to watch in the last couple of days is Democrats, and really almost wearing it as a badge of honor to wait in line. So voter suppression, the concept of, oh, I don't want to stand in line for hours, now has been almost, something that's gone social, gone viral. There's block parties almost happening. So you're really seeing a very different energy around the concept of waiting in lines right now.
Tulu, what does the number say to you? What does that nearly 100 million people have already voted say to you in terms of enthusiasm, in terms of where the available vote might still be, in terms of Texas, where more people have already voted this time than they did in 2016, North Carolina, where practically more people have voted than they did last time? What does it all say to you?
Yeah, it says that despite this pandemic and despite the fears that going out to participate in the democratic process could be dangerous to one's health, everyone has decided that they are going to have their voices heard. It shows that people are very enthusiastic about weighing in on this election for various reasons. There are a large number of people who are unhappy with what we've seen over the past 4 years, especially over the past year in particular. People have lost loved ones. People feel like this pandemic did not have to be as bad as it was, and they decided to go out in force and show their displeasure with the president. Now, the president also has a large number of people on his side. I was just at the White House just a few hours ago when he came back from his 5th rally of the day, and all of these rallies are packed with people who support him, and a large number of those people have already turned out to vote. The president is hoping that a large number of his supporters will turn out to vote today, and it does show that there is a large amount of enthusiasm in the country to weigh in this election and have your voice be heard, with the idea that you can change the course of the country if you don't like the way that things are going. And based on the polling, there are a large majority of people who do not like the course that the country is on. And we'll have to see if the president can bring enough people to the polls who want him to have 4 more years to account for the fact that in the early vote, the Democrats seem to have the lead, and the president needs to make up for a lot of ground if he's going to have a chance tonight.
And President Trump is not very comfortable with vote counting beyond today, though it always happens. I mean, all sorts of election officials, county executives keep warning us. It always happens. It's commonplace. It's how it's done. But he is not comfortable with it. And in fact, he's resorting to, I think, basically threatening that violence could erupt if if the vote weren't decided tonight. I mean, in Kenosha, just yesterday, well, I'll play it for you, what he said.
When the Supreme Court gave you an extension, they made a very dangerous situation, and I mean dangerous, physically dangerous, and they made it a very, very bad, they did a very bad thing for this state.
Sorry, that was Pennsylvania, not Wisconsin. So he's saying that a dangerous, physically dangerous situation. Why? Why is that his closing argument?
Yeah, this has been one of his arguments he's been making over the past week or so, kind of much more frequently, this concept that, you know, it's game day, and then once the votes are in, it's going to be over after the election day, which clearly is not the case historically. In Pennsylvania, he's been kind of in a tit-for-tat with the attorney general there, who has tweeted and said, no, actually, the votes in Pennsylvania often take several days after to certify the actual winner of the state. I think this is clearly because he doesn't think that he's going to do well with some of these absentee and mail-in voting. The president has really cast aspersions upon this and tried to say, you know, you need to vote in person, and they're trying to really suppress the vote as much as possible because larger numbers of voters does not look like it's going to be a good night for the president.
And as Tulu was saying, maybe this message is backfiring. Maybe it is motivating people to go out and vote. The threat of having your vote taken away sometimes makes you want it all the more. Tulu, I don't want predictions. Today is not about predictions because we're going to have results. We're going to have the numbers soon enough. But what I want to know from you is what you will be watching when as this day unfolds.
Yeah, as a Floridian, I'll be watching a number of different counties in Florida. They tend to put out their numbers pretty quickly. Sumter County in Florida is home to a large number of senior citizens, and we've seen some movement with senior citizens towards Joe Biden. It's home to the Villages, the largest retirement community. So when those numbers come in, and that county has actually had a very high number of early votes, when we understand sort of what the breakdown is, that may give us a sense of where Florida is going. If Biden's able to do relatively well with the elderly voters in Sumter County, that may be a sign that he's doing well in Florida and that he may pick up that state. I'll also be watching Georgia and North Carolina, which have had very high numbers of turnout in the early vote, and it shows that both parties are really competing in both of those states, not only at the presidential level, but also in Senate races that are going to be key. So will that high level of turnout that we saw in the early vote period continue today? And will there be enough Democrats turning out to vote on Election Day to make it harder for President Trump and the Republicans to make up the ground that they've been trying to make up over the course of this day? So I'll be watching sort of that Sun Belt, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and then the Rust Belt seems like it's going to maybe potentially come in later with the final vote. But we may have a good sense of where things are going once we see the numbers out of Florida and Georgia and North Carolina.
Anna, specifically, what will you be watching tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think he gave a good roundup. The one state that he didn't mention that you guys were talking about earlier is Ohio. I think they are able to count their early votes, so we'll have a pretty good sense of where their votes are, I think, fairly early. If Trump doesn't get Ohio, it's hard to see his pathway between that and Florida. I think that's going to be the key for the president early tonight. So that's where I'm kind of focused.
Guys, thank you very much. Great to talk to you and get all of your insight. And be sure to join us for CNN's special coverage of Election Night in America. It begins at 4 p.m. Eastern. So officials in Harris County, Texas, are closing all but one drive-through voting location today. Why? That's next.
I fall in love with their faces. It's like that. You don't know why you fall in love, right?
Yelena still frequents the nursing home down the road in Vrbas. Or we're searching for that magical face, that special connection that drives her to pick up her pencil and draw. When she finds it, she takes a photograph and leaves.
I work from a photograph lately. I used to have sitters, but lately it's a photograph. I just have this surface, really, that I work with. It's the surface of a face, it's the skin. Such a mystery, human face. It's such a mystery.